Hi, friends. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes life just gets to me. It's stressful, it's chaotic, and I just can't art like that. My body still wants to create, but my brain says, not happening. So I need some calm. This week, I want to try some relaxing coloring books. So I got a bunch of different books designed to create cool art without having to strain your brain. So first up is these mystery spiral coloring books. They say, I don't know what I'm coloring. My sister actually sent these to me after she saw them on TikTok. It looks like you just color in the spiral and it reveals a picture. But some of the designs you can sort of tell what they're going to be. Like this one is a person. And this one is some kind of bug. The finished designs are in the back, but I'm specifically not looking at them because I do want to be surprised. Flipping through the other two volumes, they do seem a little bit more intricate. Wait, that's a horse. That is a horse. But anyway, they do seem to have much more going on than this first book. But I'm going to stick with volume 1 to try it out. It says to start with black or with colored pencils, so I'm going to start with a fine liner. And this is probably the most frustrated that I have ever gotten with the beginning of any art book ever. The lines in this book are so tiny, and I was completely hunched over the book. Like you can't see it, but my head is right here. And the fine liners bleed just enough that in any other project you would never notice. But because the lines are so minuscule and close together, and there's so many intricate little bumps and curves, it seems impossible to follow the lines exactly. I tried every fine liner I had, and even a gel pen. And if they weren't bleeding over the lines, the nib was so tiny that it took forever to fill in the areas. Like it took me 3 hours to get this far. I made so many mistakes in following where the lines were that I was sure that this was going to turn out horrible. But at this point, 3/4 of the way done, I realized that even with all those mistakes, I could still totally tell that this was an angel in the clouds with a person-shaped thing down here. And knowing that gave me the confidence to not be so meticulous and stressed out. Do what I originally intended to do and relax. So I was able to move so much faster to finish this. This last section took me only a half an hour. And you might notice that I divided the picture into quarters and colored it that way. I don't know why. It was just easier for me to focus on a smaller section than to go around it in a spiral. Sue me. So here's this first one done. Not bad, but I had a bunch of different ideas for these where I add colors, and I just couldn't spend another 4 hours on one using fine liners. But I remembered that it said you could use colored pencils, so I'm going to try one that way. I'm going to do this one, the one that I said was some kind of bug. And because I don't want to show you the same boring process over again, I'm going to make a rainbow with this one to test out how it looks with multiple colors. Like, does it mess up the illusion to not do it all one color? So I measured out equal areas, more like gestured, and drew light lines down the page. Then I went in with the colored pencils. And oh my god, this was so much better. Colored pencils don't bleed, they fill in color faster, and this was so much more of a pleasurable and satisfying experience. Also, did I mistakenly only gesture out 5 stripes instead of 6? Yes, I did. Did it take me until halfway through to realize this? Yes, it did. There's my head popping in. Gross. Also, if you're thinking the colors look a little light, it's because I used the cheapest little baby nubs of Rose Art and Crayola colored pencils that I had. I like to try to use up supplies, and I wasn't super concerned with quality on this. Overall, I enjoyed this one so much more. Not only is it prettier, obviously, but it only took me about an hour and 10 minutes, including the time taken to keep sharpening my pencils. I think if you really wanted to get creative, you could even draw a design, like dots or hearts over the spiral, and color those in a different color to add even more to it. On my totally scientific relaxation scale, I give this a 5 out of 10. The next book I'm going to try is this Mystery Dots one-color coloring book. In the same vein as the last one, you color in the dots and it'll make a picture. This book says, "This is the most stress-relieving coloring book you've ever tried." We'll see about that. Again, with some of them, you can see what the picture is going to be. This is Big Ben. This is a bird. Well, that's Princess Diana. There's no key in the back, so you really don't know for sure. I'm going to do this page because it kind of looks like a shark to me. So let's see. Again, I started off this page with a fine liner. It's just coloring in circles, so it should be easier. And it was. But it also took a long time. Which honestly isn't a huge problem. It would be good for sitting in class or a lecture where I need to be focused, but my hands need something to do. It does eventually start to tire out your wrist from doing the same motion over and over, but I found that I could just fill in the circles in the opposite clock direction, and that helped stop my wrist from hurting. But after an hour and only being about halfway done, I decided for the sake of finishing this video this century, I needed to speed it up. So I switched to a marker with a fatter tip to fill in the circles faster. Unfortunately, the only fat marker I had was a Sharpie. And by the time I finished this second half, I felt like I was on something from the fumes. Luckily, it only took like 10 minutes to finish. The smell does sort of linger a bit, even for a few days. So I wouldn't recommend you use a Sharpie. But now that it's done, you can see that it is not a shark. It is instead a sideways cow. Cute! I tried this again with different colors like the spirals, but it really seems to make the image harder to see. So you must need to use only one color for the illusion to work. I did use plain Crayola markers that I borrowed from my classroom, so at least I didn't suffocate this time. Overall, I do really like this book and definitely would do it again. On the relaxation scale, I give it a 7 out of 10. Now I'm going to get into some more colorful, relaxing coloring books. Starting with this 100 Quest Color by Number book. Each page has these tiny little grids with numbers in them that you fill in to make a pixely sort of picture. Again, there is no solutions in the back, so you really have no idea what it is until you fill it in. I used the colors listed on the left side of each page to choose a page based on the baby pencils that I had. And I wasn't really sure how to start this, since there's no actual shape to the picture. So I just started at the top, going back and forth, looking for the first color. I felt like I was going cross-eyed, so I ended up using a ruler to keep track of where I was. At least until I got some parts filled in that I could use as sort of landmarks. At this point, I can kind of see wings, so I'm guessing that this is maybe a fairy or a butterfly. Since I'm using cheap pencils, the colors aren't as vibrant, and while I did go back and try to darken some of them up, I think this is a book where I would maybe use better pencils. I feel like the red, orange, and orange are kind of looking the same here. Despite the color not being what I wanted, I did actually really enjoy this. I really liked the sort of puzzle aspect of it, where I didn't really know what I was coloring in. Even once it became obvious that it was a hummingbird, I still had a pretty good time filling it in. It did require a bit more focus than the other books, so I maybe couldn't be listening to anything that required all of my attention. Only like 60% of my attention. But as something to de-stress and kill a little time while watching TV, I really liked this. For comparison's sake, this took me about 2 hours and 10 minutes to do this page. I'm not sure if you could use another medium on this because the pixels are so small and the pages are pretty thin, but I definitely will be doing this again with better pencils. Relaxation scale rating, 8 out of 10. Next, I'm going to try this Mystery Colors book. This is another color by number book, but this one has irregular shapes in it. And since there might be a bunch of shapes next to each other with the same color, You can't tell what the picture is just by looking at it. Well, some of them you can. That's a bunny. That's gotta be a turkey. That's the fish on the cover. There is a solution key in the back, but again, I'm not gonna look at it. I'm just gonna pick a page at random. And since the pages are a bit thicker, I'm gonna use markers in the colors matching the key on the page. I went in the order that the colors were listed, so I started with black. And immediately I could tell that this was a peacock. But that actually helped a little bit. Because there's no grid or any kind of order really, you're just sort of searching the page like a drunk word find, looking for numbers. But once you get an idea of what the image is supposed to be, it's a lot easier to anticipate where to look. This page was super easy and fast to fill in, but I think if you wanted to really spend some time on it, you could start with marker and use pencils over it to add details. Or, because the pages are kind of thicker, you could even use paint markers. For this one, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 on the relaxation scale. Last, I'm going to do a regular color by numbers book. One where you know exactly what you're coloring before you ever start. I actually have a few of these, but I'm going to do this one. Mostly because I've done it before and I know I love it. There is a key in the back, but obviously looking at the pages, you can tell exactly what you're going to be coloring. So I'm going to pick this chameleon. And sticking with what I've been doing, I'm using these cheap colored pencils. I do go back over it at the end to darken the color up a little bit, but yeah, it stays pretty light like the others. Something about this book I really love. I'm not sure if it's the process or just the fact that I know I'm going to love the end product because it's a colorful style that I already really like. But I've done 4 of these and liked them every time. There's not much to dissect about this really. You're just coloring in where the numbers say to color. It took about the same amount of time as some of the others, but there's no mystery or anything, so there really is no thinking needed. Here he is after he's done, and I darkened the colors as much as I could. I mean, he doesn't look at all like the picture in the back, but I still really like him. Also, the pages in this book are really thick and nice, so I've used alcohol markers and paint markers on them successfully. This book gets a perfect score on the relaxation scale. So what do you think? I actually really enjoyed all of these. It was so nice to be able to turn my brain off for a bit. Let me know if you find any more that I should try. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.